Today we're looking at the 4 parts of natural selection. Natural selection uses these parts to determine which organisms will be successful and which aren't. Please make sure that you're able to explain each one and accurately. The first part that we need to refresh ourselves is what exactly evolution is and what the driving force of evolution is. Let's take a look. Natural selection. What is natural selection? Natural selection is the driving force of evolution. The environment selects what traits are good for organisms and which traits are unsuccessful. Organisms have different traits that allow them to survive in nature. These traits can either be beneficial or harmful to the organisms over time. For example, with dinosaurs, they had very beneficial traits for the tropical climate that it was in. However, nature can change the rules at any time, making way for new species to arise. In our example with the dinosaurs, nature changed the rules that no longer favored the reptilians and instead favored small mammals to grow and expand. Natural selection can be broken down into 4 parts. A successful species meets all 4 parts. An unsuccessful species fails at one or more of the parts. Successful species that meet all 4 parts of natural selection are able to grow, thrive, and most importantly, create offspring to pass on their traits. Unsuccessful species that fail at one or more parts of natural selection eventually end up going extinct or dying out, such as the example of the dodo bird. What are parts of natural selection? Overproduction. Organisms make more offsprings than can survive. Even though some may die, some will live. Organisms tend to overproduce by making more offspring than will survive. This ensures that even though a lot of the offspring are going to die, there may be some that will continue to survive and pass on traits. For example, squid currently lay close to somewhere to 1 million eggs per squid. However, only a dozen or 2 may survive to adulthood. Oak trees are another example. Even K species, who only have 1 or 2 young at a time, make more than they will survive to ensure that even though one may die, they will still be able to pass on the traits through another offspring. Variation. Individual organisms of a species have different traits. Sometimes new traits appear from mutation. Variation in organisms is incredibly important as it allows a diversity of traits amongst organisms. This diversity ensures that while some organisms may die to a disaster, others will live for a long time. It ensures that if the environment changes, the species may continue to survive. An example of variation is the pepper moth, which can either be black or white. Depending on the background that the pepper moth ends up on, the variation can be triggered by predators, allowing some to survive with the favorable traits and those with unfavorable traits to die and not pass on their traits. Struggle to survive. Individuals compete with each other for resources. Organisms are constantly fighting over resources. Whether it's females, water, mating habituals, or food, organisms are constantly struggling to survive. Organisms have different traits to help them in their struggle to survive and pass on traits. Some individuals have traits that increase their chances at competition. Some individuals have traits that decrease their chances of survival. Organisms that have favorable traits allow them to compete easier, live longer, and have more offspring, and are considered more fit. However, organisms with unfavorable traits are easier to spot and may not live as long and are considered more unfit. Differential reproduction. Organisms with the best traits are more likely to survive and make offspring. Offspring will have those favorable traits. The environment decides what's best. Organisms that have favorable traits usually are stronger and healthier as they can compete more efficient. This ensures for them mating rights. Because organisms with favorable traits get mating rights, the offspring will have those favorable traits, and the species will continue to survive. Hence the idea of the alpha male or other organisms that compete for mating rights. Now that you've seen the parts of natural selection, it kind of makes sense of why organisms with certain traits are considered favorable and can pass on, and why some aren't. Consider tonight, though, how humans have broken the rules of natural selection. While we may have variation, how is it that we've broken the other 3? Look forward to hearing our discussion tomorrow.